This is the fifth of this year's semester program. The Meet the Author series is something that we organize to encourage dialogue on significant contemporary and other questions, brings together alumni, faculty, staff, students, and today especially parents from the whole of the Northeastern community to debate and discuss these issues. So we're hoping today isn't going to be so much a presentation as an opportunity for interaction and communication with our special guest. Anyhow, it's great to see you all today. We've got a number of other events forthcoming in this series, which I'll mention quickly. We've got our celebrated thriller novelist and Northeastern professor Gary Braver just about to talk to us next week, as well as Dr. Emily Fox-Cales, the author of Body Shots, who examines the culture of eating disorder in Hollywood. And we're also hosting a musical performance in this series by the Boston jazz legend Al Vega and his trio later this semester in November. So you can pick up the details of this program at our sign-in desk over there, or find it all on the website. And if you want more information about this or any of the other activities that the library supports, there are people here who can tell you all about those. We've got comment cards at the table as well, which we'd love you to fill in so that we can get some feedback and improve what we do here. And we also would like you to think about becoming a library supporter as well. And today we want to carry on producing these programs and bringing in some of the great speakers that we're lucky to have, and you can help us with that. So there's information on all these things at the sign-in desk that you saw at the entrance. Okay, so we're filming today's event, by the way. It'll be available once it's been edited on the university's YouTube and on iTunes university channels. You can check it out on Facebook, and you can follow us on Twitter as well. So there are all these social media that allow you to catch up if you want to tell anybody after today's event about some of the great things you saw and heard. Okay. Today's Meet the Author program features Linda Cohn, and it's made possible by our co-sponsors. The library works regularly with different parts of the university to bring these events to you. Today we have Northeastern Women's Gender Sexuality Studies Department co-sponsoring, along with Northeastern Athletics and the bookstore. I'd also like to, while I have an opportunity, thank the library's Programming and Communications Committee for their work in putting this event together. Nina Shah, the Marketing and Advancement Assistant, and Kelsey Strout, our Marketing and Events Co-op, did a lot of work to make this happen, so thanks to them. Now then, Linda Cohn, one of America's first successful full-time female sports anchors, is with us here today, and I would love to give you a long discussion and description of her resume, but I'm not the best person to do it, and I don't think you'd need it anyhow. We do have somebody who's perfectly fitted and capable for doing this. Peter Roby, Director of Northeastern Athletics, is here, and he's going to give an introduction. Peter.
Hi everyone.
Hi.
Welcome to Northeastern.
Thank you.
So great to see everybody here in such a nice crowd in the beautiful weather to show off our beautiful campus. We're so proud of this place, and it's wonderful to have all the parents back and have you here with your students. This is a treat for me. My buddy Linda Cohn is here. It was 3 years ago, I guess, almost 3.5, when Linda called and said her daughter Sammy was thinking about going to Northeastern. And I got all excited, and the rest is history. And Sammy's been having a wonderful experience ever since, and we're thrilled that we can have her as part of our Northeastern community and have Linda as part of our Northeastern community as well as a parent. I too am a parent. I'm a parent of a fifth-year student, and very proud of my son Peter, and he has taken full advantage of all the opportunities available here at Northeastern, and I couldn't be more proud of him. I'm also a graduate of Northeastern, so I have a lot of pride in the institution, and I know that you'll join me soon enough when your children are graduating with the pride you feel for what they've accomplished here and what Northeastern has done for them. If I could describe Linda Cohn, it would be that nothing comes easy, and she doesn't take the easy way out. She never settles And I'll give you a couple of examples of what I mean by that. Growing up on Long Island, but being a Rangers fan. Right? That's not easy. Yeah? Growing up a female, but playing hockey against the boys. And she taught them a thing or two, trust me. And if you read the book, you'll know all about that. College hockey player, but couldn't be a high-scoring wing. She had to be a goalie, with pucks flying at her and people skating in front of her and knocking her all over the place. Linda is a pioneer in the world of sports broadcasting with one of the most powerful sports broadcasting brands and brands of any kind in the world. The worldwide leader in sports, ESPN. Linda's a trailblazer. Linda's a mother. Linda's an author. Linda's a Northeastern parent, and the best part for me is I can call her my friend. Please welcome Linda Cohn.
Wow, thanks, Peter. That was an awesome intro, probably one of the best ever. You really did sum it up. I have a confession to make. I told both Will and Peter, please don't read my resume up here and bore the heck out of you guys. Here you have places to go, people to see, things to hear, and they were just perfect. And I also want to thank everyone else that helped get me here, Tamara, Nina, and a cast of millions, I think, to get me out of the worldwide leader of beautiful Bristol, Connecticut, and get me back up to Northeastern. And I was one of you guys, man, you parents, just like 3 years ago, with my daughter Sammy. She told me Northeastern was the only place she wanted to be, really. So much that was attractive about it. Now remember, as you can tell from my accent, I'm a New Yorker, even though my daughter Sammy was born actually in Seattle and raised in Connecticut. But Boston, this is the best of both worlds. I like using that term, best of both worlds, because it is. You're right in the city, yet you're on campus. It's not like these other, there's a lot to choose from here in this beautiful city of Boston, that we know, and outside of it. But this place was special. And, I was refreshing my memory with my daughter about, I knew she loved Northeastern from the beginning, but I also remember her saying some other reasons why, besides the fact best of both worlds, but this whole co-op thing. And she's a 3rd year here at Northeastern, and the co-op thing has been pretty cool for her. I mean, last year as a 19-year-old, she was all alone in New York City working for MTV. How cool is that, So I'm sure all of you guys have those kind of stories as well with your kids. And being parents like we are, don't we love to brag about our children? That's first and foremost. So that's what I am first and foremost, a mom. But it's kind of funny when I think of like all the questions people ask me about what I do, being at ESPN, and come July of 2012, believe it or not, it'll be 20 years that I've been at the worldwide leader and being at SportsCenter. So, wow. Yeah, right? Exactly. Like time totally flies, definitely, when you're having fun. There's no question about it. And I think a job like that helps keep you young because, you're surrounded like crazy people like yourself who are just sports fanatics and freaks who are obsessed with their teams. And I think anyone who knows me religiously knows the teams that I love because it's hard to hide. Sometimes even on the set, obviously, my colleagues make fun of me about it. But the question that people, I know that sounds shocking, that my colleagues would make fun of me about something I love. Because, there's never laughs or giggles at SportsCenter. Never. It's so serious. Just look at all the mascots that run around. And they don't, well, sometimes they do. There's some crazy things going on there. You never know when someone's going to show up. But we'll get to that later because the thing that I want to make sure that you guys get out of this is that I'm not up here going blah, blah, blah about myself the whole darn time. I want to hear from you. So we're going to have a couple of mics in a few moments. I want you now to start thinking of questions you want to ask me, because I want to give you the answers that you're looking for before you get out of this room so you can go enjoy the rest of your day. All right, but I do have to share a story with you, and this is typical because I was saying one of the most popular questions people ask me, because it's either parents who want to know for their children or, of course, student athletes or students at college or whatever, or just people that are graduated college. They want to know, how do I work at ESPN, right? That's the magical question. How do I work at ESPN? And of course, that's something, has a lot of answers. But for me, I can only speak for myself. But I had that in my mind when I was leaving the hotel this morning, wanting to get and go to a place for a great cup of coffee. Now, I live in Connecticut. I've seen enough Dunkin' Donuts. You know, no offense, but I really didn't want a cup of Dunkin' Donuts. And you know what, I really didn't want Starbucks either. So I asked the concierge, I said, simple question, where's a good place, you know, a little authentic Boston, little coffee shop, you know, a little flavor of the place. Where do I get a cup of coffee? And so the guy heard my accent when I said coffee, you know, C-A-W-F-E as opposed to C-O-F-F-E. And he was stopped there. He's an older gentleman. And he says to me, he goes, you know, let me tell you something. My mom grew up in New York City. She's an amazing person. Delancey Street, and he's going on and on. Meanwhile, I'm still waiting for the answer to my magical question. Where can I get a cup of coffee? In Boston, little, you know, feel of the place. But he goes on and on about mom. And he goes, you don't mind if I tell you about my mom, do you? And I'm like, oh, go ahead, right? Well, she's 95 and sharp like a tack. And I'm like, wow, 95 and sharp like a tack? I'm saying to myself, well, I had a magical question for him. What's her secret? I mean, what's her secret to be 95 years old and sharp like a tack? So, of course, this gentleman, the concierge, proceeded to give me my answer to my magical question. And he said to me, well, she never stopped working. Oh, she never stopped working. Yep, 95 and sharp like a tack. And she used to be a nurse. Worked at Sloan Kettering, worked at all these wonderful places in New York City for most of her life. Really meant a lot to her. And then that hit me because I'm thinking, wow, my mom was a nurse. And my mom was from Massachusetts. She grew up in Medford, Mass. And my father grew up in New York City. So I always had the best of both worlds. What it was like to be in Massachusetts and those teams from Boston and the New England area. And then my dad, of course, the influence of being a passionate, going on the roller coaster ride of being a New York sports fan. And my mom always told me I could be whatever I wanted to be. And we all know as parents, you know, that's what you tell your kids. And maybe your kids realize it's true, and maybe they don't, but I really believe my mom. She kept saying to me, you can be anything you want to be. And remember, back in the day, I mean, I grew up in the 70s. There weren't any women sportscasters, unless you count Phyllis George, although very beautiful, the former Miss America. She was doing like NFL Live or something, you know, on CBS with Brent Musburger and Irv Cross. But that was it, really, back in those days. And for her to tell me that was amazing. So I got a lot of her drive. And then my dad, well, again, back to him being a crazy, crazy sports fan, you know, that's what I adopted from him. And I bring this up because I would never be where I am today if it wasn't for my parents. And I bring it up because it's fittingly Parents' Weekend here at Northeastern, because it's really important and really significant. Because I got the drive from my mom, and I got the crazy sports fan kind of thing, filling voids from my dad. When things aren't great in your life, you always have your teams to bring you out of the doldrums, to give you something to look forward to give you the joys of the highs and lows, because that's what life's about. Life is about highs and lows. And that's what our teams help us experience. So for me, because I know you're wondering, for those who don't know, my teams are the New York Rangers, the New York Mets, the New York Giants, and I guess the Knicks, but you know, whatever. Exactly. And so that was really important to me, and that was really part of my best education. And my mom always wanted me to be a tennis player, so when I was 12, she gave me tennis lessons, because she saw me as like a future Billie Jean King. Because when I was growing up, I wore thick glasses. I had tremendous low self-esteem. I felt yucky about myself. And that's another great thing about sports, because it brings you out of that shell. And that was another reason why I wrote my book, Cohn-Head, because everyone's road is different to where they're at. And not everything is paved beautifully in gold, and mine was not. But it's funny how things get you on the right path. So she wanted me to be a tennis player like Billie Jean King. And I loved tennis, and I was really pretty good at it, but I didn't want to be Billie Jean King. I wanted to play hockey. And I would always watch the Rangers with my dad and hear him curse, because in those days, Rangers gave a fan a lot of reasons to curse, because the Bruins were beating them up all the time. And, you know, then we reached the 80s, and the New York Islanders were beating them up all the time, and it was because the Rangers punching bag. But that gave me a bit more of an education experience. I started playing street hockey with the boys outside. I realized I was good at being a goalie of all things. Again, I was a little wallflower. Hey, I got contacts, so I was able to wear the goalie mask. And everything started to happen at the right time. I ended up being good at being a goalie. My mother, who was like, you can live your dream, she gave up the dream of a tennis player. She found that there was a league on Long Island that girls can play hockey with boys. Problem is, I was 15 and I was only allowed to play with boys that were 8 and 9 years old. All right, you can't have everything. So here I am, so self-conscious of everything that I do, low self-esteem. I had to walk in and see these little 8-year-olds and play with them and not worry about what other people would be thinking. Not worry about that mom's thinking and looking at me like, what's she doing here? Type of thing. I didn't care. I wanted to play hockey. I wanted to live my dream. I'm not going to let anyone bother me, and I felt in a good spot when I did that. So sooner or later, I graduated to playing with 12-year-old boys, which was a big deal. And as we fast forward, my high school had a hockey team, a boys hockey team, not a girls, had a boys. And my junior year, when I was 16, I tried out for it, opened up some eyes, but didn't make the team. There were about 8 goalies trying out. But the next year, my senior year, I tried out, and I made it. And for me, I'm bringing this up again because it was really significant in my life, because not only making the boys hockey team, I made it as a backup goalie, played about 8 games, and then mopped up a few other ones. And I remember the coach coming into the ladies' room to tell me the good news, because there was no locker room there for being the only girl. And I remember knocking on the door and telling me I made the team, and the first thing I said was, I'm not going to let you down. And that phrase for me, I'm not going to let you down, no matter what I took on down the road, as Peter referred to, whether it was, trying to break into a man's world, working at ESPN, whatever the heck it is, not making excuses, but saying, hey, this is up to me. I have an opportunity. I've put myself in position to be lucky, which I say a lot, and if I'm repetitive with it, that's the bottom line. And we can get to that in a bit later, because that's how you get opportunities for yourself. Nothing's given on a platter, especially in this business. Everybody wants to be a sportscaster or work in sports or work for ESPN or even work for Fox or NBC, whatever it is. But make your own break, put yourself in position to be lucky. And so that's what I did with the hockey, and that was big. And then when I went to Oswego State, which is an upstate New York school, great school. Had a girls hockey team there, finally played hockey with girls, which was great. And had a locker room. That was the one thing, they had to change it later. But I majored in communications, broadcasting, concentrate. I got involved. Best thing for me, now I didn't have this great situation here in Northeastern with co-ops. Boy, I would have eaten that up. Oh, how great is that? But I had to wait till my senior year to have an internship. And to me, back then, in the early 80s, that was the key, to have an internship, so I had something to put on my resume. And it's always about have something to put on your resume. Now at Northeastern, it's fantastic because you have stuff to put on your resume once you graduate. It's amazing. And then boom, you probably already found your job before you tip your cap and throw it up in the air. But for me back then, that was the key, getting involved in everything I could do while I was in college. And it doesn't matter, just get involved. And so that was also very important. And then going through that and graduating, and I was in radio, and that was all great. Worked on Long Island, forced myself. My big thing was I actually had to cover the New York Islanders, which was painful. But it was during their glory days and a bit after. But it was worth it because people were I put myself in position to be lucky. Because people saw how passionate I was about what I do, and then they're like, oh wow, she's actually pretty good. She kind of gets it. She's speaking our language. She's a real fan, yet she knows what's going on. Oh yeah, because I played. And that helps. Even whatever sport, it helps to play, but it's not the end all. It doesn't matter, You see a lot of these great broadcasters in my business, they've never played, they've never thrown a ball, they've never, shot a hockey puck or stopped one, but they're really good at what they do. So these are the kind of things that were important to me and how really helped me grow. And it's about life experiences and things like that. So I put together a tape. I was doing radio, but I really wanted to do TV because, radio was enough. I kept trying to climb the mountain. And we all kind of do that when we're younger, thinking, how far can we go? I can always fall back on this. Like if you want to be in broadcasting, but you think PR might be good for a sports team. All right, let me try to do the broadcasting. I can always fall back and do the PR thing. And that's how I was. I was like, okay, if that doesn't work out, I'll still be in sports. I love sports, so it may not be my first thing, but it could be my third thing, and I'll still be happy. So that was always the mentality I had, keep trying. So I put together a TV tape, because I was doing very local Long Island TV. They didn't let me do sports in Long Island TV back then. I had to do news. I hated news. But I'm thinking, all right, maybe I can hone my TV skills. Kind of use your situation to help you. May not be a perfect situation, but use it. Use them. Whatever opportunity you guys get, use that opportunity. You're going to marvel later and realize, you know what? I'm glad I did that. And I didn't want what I exactly wanted then, because this helped me right over here. So that's why that helped me. And I got a job. Took me a year to get it. But I decided after I made the TV tape, I'm going to send it out to cities where I want to live and work and do TV sports. I took control of the situation. Again, falling back on other things. I could just do radio all my life if I have to. Nothing wrong with that, but I want to at least kind of pick and choose. A year later happened, Seattle came calling. I got my first job at a Seattle TV, doing TV sports reporting and anchoring. Biggest break for me was a CBS affiliate, Seattle, amazing city, a lot like Boston, very passionate sports town, beautiful out there. I was a New York girl. I remember at that time I was doing work at WFAN in the early days, and a colleague of mine, who's a colleague now, Steve Levy, I was working with him, and I remember him, I told him I got the job in Seattle to do TV, I was leaving radio, I was just doing updates in WFAN. And he said, why do you want to go 3,000 miles away and leave New York? I'm like, why not? And I'm glad I did, because 6 months later, ESPN spotted me. 6 months later, after I took that job in Seattle, ESPN spotted me. And then I realized that I had to fulfill my commitment and contract for KIRO-TV in Seattle, so I stayed in Seattle. But I'm glad I did. I had amazing experiences covering Ken Griffey Jr. and the Mariners in the early days. You know, the Sonics, when they did have an NBA team in Seattle. Different things like that, life experiences, and I got better. And I figured, you know what, if ESPN wants me now, they'll come calling again. And they did 2 years later. And that time I said, I'm not going to mess around. I'm going to the worldwide leader, which back in 1992, not sure if they were Penn the worldwide leader yet, but they were on their way. And so for the last 19 plus years, I've been at ESPN. I've watched all the growth, all the technology. Now we can't get parking spaces, all this talent, you know, it's like, where are we parked? It's so big. They keep building buildings. You know, but the bottom line is this, is that people also ask, why haven't you ever left ESPN? Well, I'll tell you why. Big thing is, I wanted stability for my children. I also have a son in high school, besides my daughter who goes here. I wanted stability for them because I thought it was cool that they could have their same friends from preschool to high school. I thought that was important. And as I look at them now, I know I did the right thing there. The second thing about why I stayed at ESPN was I was at the place, my employer, that place of business was a place where I smiled and laughed more than I was stressed out and angry. And to me, that's a perfect home away from home. And that's a success. When your workplace and the people you work for and with make you laugh and smile more than you're upset and stressed out, that's a win. That's a win. And so I don't regret anything about staying here. People wonder why I didn't go like to NHL Network and all that. I'm not saying that's not happening in a couple of years, but I'm saying like right now, because obviously hockey's my passion, I wouldn't have it any other way. So that's a nutshell about me. A lot more detail and stuff about ESPN is in my book, but I'll be happy to answer any of your questions or share anything about what's been going on at ESPN the last 20 years, anything you might need to know to help facilitate and get on the right road to where you know, your children, or you'd like to be, or just would like answers. Yes?
By the way, you're very skinny in real life.
Thank you. I didn't realize I was overweight on TV, but thank you. I'll take that as a compliment. You know women love to hear that. It's a good thing.
My dad died in 1995, and he was a lifelong Ranger fan. He said after they won the cup, that now.
I can tell you a piece.
That was pretty emotional.
Yeah.
Your comments. Can you walk us through a day in the life where, how do you go from coming into work at whatever time to the point where you're on TV, and what part of
That sounds exactly the same, even with a mic. You know, I can hear you.
What part of putting the news together is the announcer's role
Right.
versus everybody else's role?
That's a fantastic question. And by the way, I just want to add that Ranger note. You mentioned your dad passed on 95. My father is no longer with us. And I remember I was in that building in 1994. I cashed in on a favor to be in that building. I thought they were going to win it in 5 games, so I paid for my tickets for game 5. They didn't. Had to stretch it out, go to game 7. And I got in that building, and I remember calling my dad to share that moment with him in 94. So I totally can relate to that kind of stuff. But the day in the life of Linda Cohn or any SportsCenter anchor, wow, where do you start? But we actually, what we're really proud of over the years, and why SportsCenter, and I'm going to stay on SportsCenter as opposed to the big picture ESPN, because that's what I've done primarily over the years, is the fact that we don't just show up and sit down and stuff isn't written for us. We write our own stuff. Let me repeat that. All those journalism and writing classes and, you know, conversational type writing, it's all paying off because we write our own stuff. That way our personalities come out. If I were to sit there and read someone else's stuff on a teleprompter, now we still have teleprompter, don't get me wrong, you know, we'll write it and it goes right in the teleprompter and we can see it, what we wrote. That has been the key to our success. Our personalities coming out. So we're in a good 6 to 7 hours before the program. Let's say, lately I've been doing, even I did the mornings this week, I usually can be seen on 11 p.m. Eastern shows. So we're in at 5 o'clock, we go to a meeting. The producer, the director, all key people that put together a SportsCenter telecast. In this case, the 11 o'clock, we meet at 5 p.m. And then we all talk about the big stories. Obviously some are, you know, if it's a Sunday night, which I do a lot, Sunday night 11, it's always about the NFL, and that's great. You know, I love that. But there are other things, and we have debates and we talk. So the meeting usually goes for about 45 minutes because, you know, you might assume we're going to lead with the Patriots or something, but they might say, oh, wait a minute, we should really lead with the Packers and blah, blah, blah. You know, well, whatever it is, and then we talk about it. And then it's an option, it's a venue for ideas to be shared. Now, a lot of times the producer and the director have orders from the big bosses that say, oh, yeah, you can take their ideas, but we're not going to use them. You know, well, we got to use ours or whatever, but I kid. But so that's what you actually do. And then you sit down and you sit in a pod, science fiction like a pod, but actually it's some tables and chairs all next to each other for that particular show with computers. And we have TVs, so we get to watch what we want. Oh, by the way, win. And then we sit there and write and look with a computer and write our stuff. The producer has a rundown, and a name is attached, either my name or my co-anchor. I know which game I'm going to have to worry about. I know which story I'm going to have to worry about and which one I have to write. And when the games, if I'm like assigned, you know, Patriots, Jets, I have a shot sheet. And the shot sheet is when we go to the video, it tells me, okay, what's the first shot I'm going to see? You know, Tom Brady, you know, 40-yard pass to Wes Welker. Okay, blah, blah, blah. Now it's 3rd and goal, you know, whatever. And it kind of maps it out what I'm going to see on the video. You won't see me looking down at the piece of paper called the shot sheet. You're seeing the video of what I'm telling you. I'm voicing over. As a matter of fact, a few years ago, and we should do another one of these because it was a big success. We did a behind-the-scenes look called This is SportsCenter. And you actually saw with little boxes what like people like me and Scott Van Pelt, Steve Levy, whoever were doing when other things were going on that you could not see. And that whole and answered your question like perfectly. So and then it's showtime. So yeah.
You had a colleague, Aaron Andrews, who was a victim of
I still have a colleague.
who was a victim of a crime, terrible crime a few years ago, and then became criticized because she went on things like Dancing with the Stars. Did that change anything about how you handle yourself or do things or public perceptions or Twitter or Facebook?
Right. Well, I'll tell you, yeah, that was awful what happened to Erin. And you know, Erin has the right to do anything she wants to. I mean, whatever the details, whatever went down, she shouldn't worry about what other people thought. And she just went about her business and went on Dancing with the Stars and still is very great at what she did. I have to tell you a quick Erin Andrews story. Remind me of your part 2 question. But I did the show yesterday morning, and she was at East Lansing for the big game, one of the big games tonight, Wisconsin and Michigan State. And you know, I asked her a bunch of questions about that game and you know whatever. And then a few days earlier, and I had just seen the story she did, and it was really, I got to give her credit, it was very funny. You know, this year, have you guys noticed with college football, a lot of new uniforms, like you know, University of Maryland created Pride Stir with their crazy uniforms displaying the Maryland flag. You know, different kind of crazy stuff going on with, you know, we thought was typical, like Notre Dame today, it's supposed to have really shiny gold helmets. You know, it's like schools are making a big deal. Now I'll have to find out from Peter what Northeastern is doing. Any new uniforms or anything interesting with the hockey team tonight? Or?
No, we're waiting for that big donation. So
All right. That was a nice segue, Peter. I'm glad I brought that up. So Peter's waiting for the big donation.
never miss an opportunity.
All right, well, it's good. So anyway, back to Erin. So she did this funny piece. She had in her story, I'm sure you've all watched Joan Rivers do her show on, you know, after the Emmys and Oscars, Best Dressed, Not So Good Joan. And she has like a panel of people, Joan and these panel of people, you know. I don't know where they're from, but they're supposedly experts on fashion. And so Erin did a story when they had these models come out wearing University of Maryland, you know, uniform, some other uniform, what a different, Oregon, that was another one. Oregon had a cool uni, and they would give their serious opinions on what they thought, you know, as opposed to Kate Blanchett and, you know, whoever was walking down the aisle was University of Maryland, whoever. So Joan Rivers, and so I asked Erin during this interview about Michigan State and, you know, Wisconsin, I said, oh, by the way, before I let you go, Erin, what was Joan Rivers really like? I mean, you know, the world wants to know. And she goes, actually, Linda, she was really nice and everything, and blah, blah, and I thought I was expecting that kind of answer from Erin. But then she surprised me, and she says, but the most surprising thing is, she smelled great. And I'm like, I laughed out loud. I go, really? Joan Rivers smelled great? She goes, yeah, Linda, that's what I remember most from the experience. I wanted to ask what she was wearing. So anyway, what was part two of your question?
Did what happened to Erin and the aftermath
All right.
affect
So,
you in any way?
well, I think it affected all of us. You know, I don't speak for just women, but men, about just what they can do. And you mentioned Twitter, and that's another topic I want to get into because social networking and ESPN really wanted to be proactive and really remind us, hey, watch what you put on Twitter. Watch whether it's pictures, whether it's what you say. You can have your opinions, but you're still representing the company, so you have to be careful. So I think everyone can think for themselves and know, but at least it's good to see, you know, Erin came out of that well, and hopefully we've all moved on from that.
And can you complete the sentence, pot ban?
Sucks. Which brings me to another story. I was in, this is how crazy I am as a sports fan. I was in Stockholm, Sweden. No, ESPN didn't send me there. The Rangers played their first two regular season games in Stockholm against the Kings and Ducks. I thought it'd be just a live life experience. Why don't I fly, my first time in Europe, why don't I go to Stockholm to see two Ranger games? Who wouldn't do that? I'm not sure, but I did grab my friend Fran, who actually I convinced her to go, and who do you think I met at this game? In Sweden, in Stockholm, Ulf Nielsen. Former Ranger great back in 1979, and the whole thing about the Potvin sucks thing, that Dennis Potvin, that year they would go, Rangers were right to the finals during this series against the New York Islanders, and Dennis Potvin was a very good defenseman for the New York Islanders, took out Ulf Nielsen in the corner, and his career was over. That was our leading scorer. That was our chance to win the Stanley Cup back in 1975/80, 78/79 actually, and from that day on, fans at the Garden, to this day, there'd be a guy that whistles, you know, the jingle, we will not do it, anyway, and at the end, we all yell, Potvin sucks. Well, I sat next to Ulf Nielsen when the Rangers played the Ducks. I introduced myself, I was like in awe. Would you believe in Stockholm, Sweden, they were doing that chant, Potvin sucks? And if you thought that was cool, I'm sitting next to Ulf Nielsen, I couldn't believe it, so I turned to him, and I said, oh my God, I have to ask you, how do you feel about this after all these years that we do this crazy chant and end it with Potvin sucks because of you? And he turned to me and he said, Linda, you know what? I love it. Do you know why? Because I'll always be remembered. And I was like, you know, that was one of like the top 3 things that I got out of that whole Stockholm, because the Rangers lost both games, by the way. But it was a great experience. Okay.
Could you tell us a little bit about the challenges you faced when you first started at ESPN, being the first female anchor, and how you were treated by the male sportscasters, if they were helpful or resentful or?
Right. First of all, to be on the record, when I got to ESPN, there had been female anchors before. Many didn't last long. And then there was Robin Roberts, a great journalist. She was there before me. She did a lot of the Sunday morning NFL stuff and Saturday and Sunday morning sports centers and some 6 o'clocks. So when I got there, Robin was still there. But I always remember, and I talk about this in the book, about that experience, because I remember I had met Gary Miller, who used to work at ESPN, and I was in Seattle at the time, and I called Gary, and Gary says, why don't you call my buddy Dan Patrick? And of course everyone knows Dan Patrick, one of the legendary greats at ESPN now. He's off doing so many wonderful things. But he says, I'm sure Dan would love to talk to you, because I had to be prepared. You know, before I walked in those doors, I didn't want to walk in there cold, and I want to know what people were thinking about me. Like, who is this Linda Cohn from Seattle, even though she's this New Yorker with a New York accent. So I got on the phone with Dan, and I want to say I love Dan, but he wasn't rolling out the red carpet. He was like, cut right to the chase. He goes, you know, many women before you have failed here. That was like one of the opening lines. Thanks, Dan. So again, getting back to, you know, that whole hockey thing, playing on a boys' team, people looking at me like, you're going to fail. What are you doing here? What a great preparation for my real life and my real career. And little by little, all I knew was what I could do, what was in my control. And that was, you know, kick butt, know my stuff, be prepared, and don't screw up, you know, basically. And that kind of just constantly kept me inspired. And plus then when they got to meet me and know how, you know, nutty I am and how much I love sports, everything fell into place. But the viewers, it was still shocking, you know, for the viewers, because I was an everyday fixture on SportsCenter. And so that was a first. So I got some mail before there was, you know, in the early days, you know, I got handwritten notes, you know, what are you doing here, you know, blah, blah, blah. You know, they weren't pretty, you know, some upset me. And it wasn't because of the job I did or whatever, it was just the judgmental and everyone thinks they could do it better and all that. But that was part of the gig. I asked for it. I put myself in this position, so I was not going to complain about it. And then my goal was to just keep doing what I was doing, and that's all I could do. And soon those letters would, you know, disappear once I proved that I knew what I was talking about and had fun doing it.
All right, so.
Oh, I'll grab him and then hold on there.
What's your most memorable moment?
I've had so many, it's a great question. I've had so many memorable moments. I think what's so cool for me as a fan first is that I get to, you know, have an opportunity to meet athletes that I never thought I would. The other day, Jerry Rice we hired as an analyst, you know, and being at, you know, there I see him wearing one of his 9,000 Super Bowl rings. And, you know, I said to him, I said, which one are you wearing, Jer? You know, and, oh, Super Bowl 24, Linda. And, oh yeah, that was the 55-10 thrashing of the Denver Broncos. Yep, that's the, I go, now I know why you picked all that one to wear, you know, type of thing. I go, well, and of course I didn't hesitate to bring up, as the Giants fan that I am, Jerry, Super Bowl 25 was fascinating for me. And he goes, oh yeah, Linda, I remember Super Bowl 25. We weren't in it because the Giants beat us in the NFC Championship game. We didn't fumble the ball so many times, and he was ripping his teammate, Roger Craig. And so, so that was the kind of stuff. So little things like that, so many cool moments of just, you know, that's an example. And the other thing I like to bring up, I love the fact that if my team suffers a devastating loss, that my psychiatrists are these sports analysts that I work with. Because like the next day, I can go in to talk to Antonio Pierce about the Giants, or I could talk to Barry Melrose and deal with the Rangers, or I can get, you know, therapy. When Peter Gammons was with us, oh, he helped me through many a Met loss. He was so important to me. So those are the great moments that I will always cherish and remember.
Well, my question's kind of like that. Instead of what's your most fulfilling moment, who was your favorite person of all time who you got to interview that you'll never really forget?
Well, you know what? That's good. So many, you know, from Michael Jordan to Wayne Gretzky, those two like stick out, you know, to me, which is amazing. You know, Mark Messier to me was big because the whole Ranger thing. And then just even people that I've met, even outside the company because of what I do. I got to meet the first goalie I ever loved, like when I was 8 years old, Eddie Jockman. And this guy is the one that, you know, I loved because he was a rebel back then. He got into fights, he played the buck, did everything, you know, he was a Ranger, and I got to meet him. And those are the kind of things, again, without sounding repetitive, a camera sometimes doesn't have to be rolling for me to get the most enjoyment. And a perfect example for that for me is when people say, what's the best event you've ever covered? Well, the best events I've ever been at are the ones I wasn't working at. Mm-hmm. That Game 7 of the New York Rangers in '94, I wasn't working, I was there as a fan. You know, I don't want to bring this up, but I'll do it anyway. When the Giants shot the Patriots, and believe me, all Giant fans were shocked. I was there as a fan, you know? I was there as a fan, and it was difficult for me because my son Danny's the biggest Patriots fan you ever want to know, and he still to this day cannot believe that happened. I cannot bring it up, and he hates Eli Manning for life. Can't even bring up the Giants around him. He'll only root for the Giants when they play an AFC East team. So those are the kind of things, I always will say that. The best event is the one I'm not working at, because then I'd be working 16 hours, and I'd be busy putting together the story, and I'd miss all the action on the field. And that's what the hard workers like the Rachel Nichols, you know, Erin Andrews, all these people that do sideline and do these and are reporters strictly, that's their life. And it's really amazing. I really give them a lot of credit because they're always on the road. And that's really a tough existence too. Yeah.
Do you find you work better with some co-anchors than others, or is it a pretty tight-knit group all around?
Well, you know what, pretty much it's a great tight-knit group all around, because what's really cool about working there is that mostly everyone is like a different level of yourself. You know, some are more crazy, some are less crazy, some are more intense, some are not, some are just silly, whatever. So a lot of us get along with each other, but I think the repetition, like the key is when you work at SportsCenter, the more you work with the same person, the better it is. Because then it's like a married couple, you know, the ins, the outs, this, that, when to jump in, when to jump out, when not to say something, when to say something, when your anchor needs to be saved by you going in and jumping in their highlight and have some fun. So though the guys that I work with a lot, like, you know, John Anderson, I used to work with him tons. He's now on the 6th, so I don't work with him a lot. But the Van Pelts, the Levies, those kind of guys. Back in the day, I worked with Stuart Scott, who I really enjoyed because it's just so fun. Different things like that. And that's what's really cool. That's another advantage of being there so many years. You work with about 1 million anchors. I've worked with about, I'd say, 50 different SportsCenter anchors. I've lost count. That's how long I've been there.
Hi. I also have a question you segued very nicely to. Two different types of answers. One's career ladder, and one would be the competitor in you. And I'm hearing that, teamwork and all that. Head slapping, why did I say those moments? What do you regret saying, or why are you happy you said it?
Oh, are there moments where something I said that I
You
regret?
can stand out the most. One from career ladder, and one from just as a competitor when you're talking to another athlete.
Oh, okay. I always have those moments where I wish I didn't say it. I'm like, I just let my mouth just go crazy. Typical New Yorker, right? We love to chat. But I don't know, to an athlete, that's interesting. In my book, I tell a story about an athlete that I was interviewed in Seattle and I put on a pedestal. And as fans, we do that with our athletes, you know. We put them on pedestals and we think they're kings and queens and we think they're great and we think they're perfect and we forget that they're human. And it was a real learning experience for me early on in my career regarding this particular Seattle athlete, which opened my eyes to a lot when you're in this business and you can't assume that, you know, what you say will be taken right or what they say to you. So I'm taking your question and bringing that into focus because I feel that's important because we all get caught up in that. I mean, you know, I'm in this business, I'm a professional, so you're always, you know, I do have to watch what I say. And when you meet athletes for the first time, you know, they know you as ESPN, especially if they come to ESPN, you know, you have to act like a ESPN anchor and a personality. And then you know, as an anchor or personality, you know when you can like jump over the line a little bit and have some fun. But when the camera's rolling, you always have to be on guard. And I think that's working for any big corporation is like that because you're working for them. Yeah.
The reason I asked that is because was it Dick Gray and Pete Rose? He was asking him about you not being in the hall, and now he seems to be shut.
Oh yeah, Jim Gray. I remember that. Yeah.
I
There's a guy who doesn't hesitate to talk. I'd like to have his job. He works twice a year and gets paid a lot of money. I don't know how that works out. He was like the anchor on The Decision, you know, the reporter on The Decision with LeBron James. Like, hey, Jim Gray, I haven't seen you in 5 years. It's great. Nice. Good gig you got. It's the most watched cable TV show of all time, I think. But yeah, I mean, you know, that worked out. I mean, that whole thing, that was like one of a great Jim Gray moment because of the response he got from Pete Rose and all that. So, I mean, I didn't, because I'm specifically an anchor, and I didn't have as many opportunities as a reporter, so I probably can't pin down one moment that even comes close to something like that, but it was a good question. Yep.
Hello. I'm thinking one of the biggest changes over the last 20 years is the difference in sports broadcasts and how it's gone from a focus in athletics to almost a focus on legal issues. Sports enhancing drugs, contract issues, strikes in leagues. And I'm wondering if that's aggravating to announcers. I'm wondering if that is downplayed or accentuated, because most fans, I would imagine, would prefer to come home and hear about the true sports of the day, not so much the legal issues. How does all that happen in the newsroom?
I'm really surprised. I mean, you don't want to hear about Billy Hunter and David Stern talking about the NBA lockout, day 118. My goodness. No, actually, you hit it on the head. We hate that stuff. We hate it. First of all, it means more writing instead of more talking sports and more doing, you know, highlights, which is something I love. It's more about the legal stuff and the HGH and the steroid stuff. I think our bosses and what we do and what we talk about in those meetings, in those production meetings, it's still a visual element. That's what SportsCenter is. That's what TV is. Let them read it on the internet. Let them read it on the newspapers. I still think the Boston Globe exists, correct? All right, good. And, you know, that kind of thing. So, you know, we have to mention it. We also have the bottom line, you know, type of thing where you can get information. So if we didn't acknowledge things like that, that would be a problem. But we do, but to a point. We always try to be as visual as possible, than be like doing newspaper stories and having our talk, you know, heads up there going yap, yap, yap. Yeah.
I'm the soccer announcer here.
Oh, cool.
What's the best way to get your foot in the door in like ESPN or different news
Well, the PA program, which is production assistant. Perhaps you've heard about it. It's a great program. It's when you finish here and you actually do the highlights. We have this big highlight area where as a PA you can do roles from either running the prompter or sitting and watching a game and doing highlights. Like you'd be assigned a game, like you'd be doing Wisconsin tonight against Michigan State. You'd be sitting there and, you know, you're trained before, you know, and you get paid, but it's not a lot, but it's great camaraderie. And you really see from the inside what SportsCenter is really like. And I applaud this program because being there 19 plus years, I've seen many people like you that would start in the PA program that just developed to be producers now and even higher up, coordinating producers, remote cover games, like many roles. They stay with the company and they go up. And I have no reason to be, you know, a cheerleader for ESPN, or, you know, they don't pay me extra. But I know for a fact that is a great way to see it. So those are kind of things that you apply for. I think you just go on, like there's a website. And I'm sure, and I know I talked to Peter before, like the co-op program, you know, they're getting more proactive with ESPN to try to get opportunities while you're still in school to do similar things, so you can really kind of get that feel. And that's what's great about the co-op program. You can find out what you don't want to do, too, as opposed to what you really want to do, and really get you on the right path. So that would be my best situation. And the soccer, let me tell you something. ESPN loves soccer. It is like, oh my gosh. And they're really bummed out that they had the World Cup in 2014, but Fox, the job that ESPN did in the past with World Cup, all these other networks like totally paid mega millions now, and Fox won it for 2018 and 2022. So soccer is big, and they show us, they have big on-air talent meetings to show us the demographics of who watches ESPN and who watches SportsCenter. And it's a lot of diversity and a big, as the Hispanic population is growing in our country, you can see, and they showed us that soccer is like right there, you know, it's up there. So that's why ESPN makes a whole big deal and bangs it over our head, you know, the old school people like me who just like, you know, hockey, NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball. Also a dying sport too, by the way. Hard to believe. I won't bring up the Red Sox, speaking of dying. But the good news is I'm not a Yankee fan, remember, I'm a Met fan, so I kind of root for the Red Sox. Any team that plays the Yankees is a team I root for. My daughter knows that. I passed that down to her, and I'm proud of her for that. Yeah.
Now that it's more common for females to be in sports, what do you think makes a young female reporter stand out?
Basically, knowing your stuff, you know. There has been there's always like a trend of just getting like, you know, the beautiful blondes up there, and that's cool if they know their stuff, you know. It doesn't matter what, I don't think it should matter what, just like it doesn't matter how guys look, as long as they look put together and dress nice. Same should be the rule for women. And if they have a good camera presence and talk like you know what you're talking about without putting pressure on yourself. You don't have to be a historical book on sports facts. You just have to be conversational. And I talk about that in my book too, because one of the best pieces of advice I ever got was from a colleague I worked with in Long Island before I got the Seattle job. And I was doing my first live shot at a Sonics game. And I was a little nervous. And she said to me, I called her up. She said to me, just make believe you're talking to just me. Just make believe what you're telling me about this game, and you're just telling your friend Lee. And that really hit home. And that's what I did. So it comes off great. You don't have to know everything. Just be prepared, stay on a couple of facts, and you can make everyone believe you know everything from top to bottom. So that would be my best answer for you. But you're beautiful. If you'd have everything then if you they love you.
One area that seems to be where women seem to not have made inroads in sports is in the play-by-play and the or color commentary in football, baseball, basketball, and the like. When do you think that's going to happen, and why hasn't that happened yet?
Well, there are a few that are out there doing some college football. That's a good question. I tried my hand in it for a couple of years. I did some LPGA golf because they asked me to, and I said, all right, I'll try it. It was an interesting experience. I didn't enjoy it as much because I play golf, but I didn't have that passion for it. But as a host, as a golf announcer, you really have to play kind of straight anyway. It can't be the story. And it was a lot different than doing SportsCenter, where you try to enhance what you're talking about, what you're doing. And then they also said, why don't you want to try doing some women's college hoop games or women's WNBA, which I did. I tried. It was a great experience, but again, me personally, I didn't like it because I just I don't know. It wasn't for me. But I will say this. I think, and this sounds, as a sports fan, when I hear the few women that do the college football, the voice is very important to me. The tone, the inflection. And if I hear a high pitch, or if I hear a distracting tone, where a lot of times some women have, it's a turn on for me. So I don't want a woman sounding deep voice, don't get me wrong. I just don't want her sounding, I just want her sounding smooth. Like, just don't become the story. So I think with football and those kind of sports, you have to find a right quality and a right mix. But I think they're moving in the right direction. And I think as the young women who grew up watching sports and sports being a part of their life and hearing all the broadcasters, I think we're going to have those opportunities. And I think there'll be a right mix and the right person to hire more women doing play-by-play. There's some real good analysts out there, though, that are women. Doris Burke is like my favorite. I love Doris. She can do anything. She can do play-by-play. She can do analysis. Hey, she could coach. She's great. So I'm a big fan of Doris. There are a lot of women that are out there, especially in basketball, that they're good quality. But the play-by-play is a different animal than being an analyst. Okay, who's going to be the lucky last person?
You talk about that we put athletes on pedestals, and in all your years of working and meeting with these athletes, have you ever had an athlete that you had idolized that kind of let you down at the end?
Have I had an athlete that I idolize what?
That let you down, like
That's exactly what I write about in the book. That's exactly it. I mean, that's what happened in Seattle. As for other ones, you know, I can't, as fans, we tend to take the athletes that we love, we feel like they're family members, so we kind of take it personally if they let us down. Or if they, a lot of athletes that I stick up for and defend when, you know, when they throw 4 interceptions, I'm like, oh God, now I have to defend them again, that kind of thing. You're always going to find that, as we know, as sports fans, we always deal with that. So but I don't think as a broadcaster or a SportsCenter anchor, you can't take what they do in their lives personally. You know, as fans we like to, because it's harmless, you know, because we always debate about who's better and our guy's better than your guy and all things like that. But I can't take it personally, like, they didn't do it to spite me. So, anyway, thanks everybody for your time.
Linda, thank you so much. This was so much fun. I hope everybody agrees that it was a wonderful opportunity to get a little behind the scenes. Needless to say, we take great pride in the fact that you're a Northeastern parent and you're a part of our community, so you'll have plenty of people rooting for you when you go on SportsCenter from now on. Awesome. Make no mistake. This is a little token of appreciation from all of us, all the folks that put this on, Tammy and Nina and all the folks from development and from the library. And also, we have a hockey game this evening on the men's side against Boston College. That's a sold-out affair, so Tammy was nice enough to give up her tickets for you to...
Is that true, Tammy?
No. She has her own ticket.
That's
anyway,
awesome.
Enjoy the game,
Thank
and
you,
thank you
guys.
so much for being here with
My
us.
pleasure.
It's great to see
I
you.
always feel at home here in Northeastern.
Thank you all for coming today. Linda has graciously agreed to stay and sign some copies of her book, Cohn-Head. The book's on sale at the back there, and if you want to get in line, there's going to be a table set up at the front left here, where Linda will do some signing. So thank you all for coming today, and have a good day.